Hello, good evening to you and a warm welcome to Business Live. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, Ghana's economy projected to grow by 4.4% in 2025 as government moves to spend 290.9 billion cedis for the 2025 fiscal year.
Have been set for the year 2025. Overall real GDP growth of at least 4% of GDP.
We shall be unpacking the numbers for you with an economist and tell you what's in for you. Also in this bulletin, government moves to scrap e-levy, emission levy, betting tax, among others, to ease the financial burden on households and businesses.
We will abolish the 10% withholding tax on winning from lottery, otherwise known as the betting tax.
We will be getting reactions from the various business groups and associations on this shortly. Plus, Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Abinamwa, emphasizes the need for policy reforms to incorporate investment education in the country's educational system.
If we make investment education part of compulsory programs at school, so working with Ministry of Education, include financial education and literacy.
We have details of these and more lined up for you. Please stay. So much you could join me. I am Pius Kojo Baka. I want to start off with a big story for the day because Finance Minister Dr. Ato Forson has announced that Ghana's gross domestic product is projected to rise to 4.4% by the end of 2025. Additionally, he disclosed that the non-oil GDP is expected to grow at an even higher rate of 5.3%, signaling the government's commitment to economic expansion and diversification. But the government's forecast suggests a steady economic rebound driven by improved productivity in key sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing and services. Here's Dr. Ato Forson when he presented the 2025 budget in Parliament.
Mr. Speaker, in pursuit of the overarching macroeconomic objectives, the following macroeconomic targets have been set for the year 2025. Overall real GDP growth of at least 4% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, not less non-oil real GDP growth of at least 4.8% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, end period inflation rate of 11.9%. Mr. Speaker, primary balance on commitment basis of a surplus of 1.5% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, gross international reserves, including oil funds and encumbered assets, to cover not more than a minimum of 3 months of import. Mr. Speaker, to address inflation, government will implement a number of measures to complement the Bank of Ghana and monetary authorities. Mr. Speaker, the measures to stabilize the exchange rate include the following. We will be establishing the Ghana Gold Board to enhance the generation of accumulation of forex to support the stability of the Ghana cedi. The Bank of Ghana will continue to implement its FX forward auction to support the stability of the Ghana cedi. Government strong fiscal consolidation through the reduction in public sector spending and the fiscal deficit will reduce the pressure on the exchange rate. And Mr. Speaker, our import substitution drive under the 24-hour economy involving domestic production of key products originally imported will reduce import and related FX requirements, boding well for FX stability.
He also announced that the total appropriation for the 2025 fiscal year amounts to 290.9 billion cedis, presenting the 2025 budget to Parliament. Dr. Forson provided an overview of the government's revenue and expenditure projections for the year.
Total revenue and grant for 2025 is projected at 223.8 billion Ghana cedis, or 17.2% of GDP, up from 186.5 billion, or 17.4% of GDP. The projection is underpinned by non-oil revenue measures, which are expected to yield at least 0.6% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, total expenditure on commitment basis for 2025 has been programmed at 269.1 billion, representing 20.7% of GDP, down from 279.2 billion, which is 26% of GDP in the year 2024. Primary expenditure on commitment basis is projected at 204.7 billion Ghana cedis, representing 15.8% of GDP, which is a significant decline from 232.4 billion, representing 21.7% of GDP in the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, based on the resource allocation from 2025 fiscal year, the total appropriations for the year ending 31st December 2025 is 290,971,212,435 billion Ghana cedis.
Let's make sense out of the numbers and get on to Zoom and speak with economist Professor Patrick Isuming to help us unpack the numbers in the 2025 budget. Pleasure you could join us on Business Live. And first off, before we even talk about the numbers, your initial comments on the budget, how would you describe it?
Good evening and good evening to viewers. Thanks for having me. So I think clearly the budget has signaled two fundamental shifts in how the fiscal policy is going to be run. The first shift is a move away from a focus on revenue-based consolidation to expenditure-based consolidation. So you see that in the decision to reduce the spending even below last year's level, which is quite extraordinary. And it appears that government is doing this and then redirecting spending more to households by way of the number of transfers that were mentioned in the budget. Whether you agree with some of the transfer or not is a different thing, but there's a clear shift to focus more on expenditure-based consolidation. The other one is that there's a move away from the centralization that we saw in the previous regime. You saw that in the previous regime, they introduced the appropriation capping, where they capped how much it was going to the statutory funds and decided to centralize the spending. We all know what the consequences. There appears to be a move away from that. So I think those were two major shifts that I noted in how the budget was being done this time.
And what might trigger that switch?
Well, I think much of it is the outcry of how the previous government ran the fiscal side. I think how it ran the consolidation. When we went to the IMF, we decided to impose more taxes. And we saw that in the lead up to the election, both parties realized that was a mistake. So because even the MPP candidate decided to roll back some of the taxes. So I think that is one explanation. And as for the earmark funds capping, it clearly hasn't worked. I think the centralization of fiscal resources in the government has actually caused us more problems because of the inefficient use and so on and so forth.
All right, let's talk about the numbers as presented in the 2025 budget. The economy is projected to grow by 4.4% in 2025. And just yesterday, the Statistical Service said the country's economy grew by 5.7% in 2024. How do you reconcile these two figures turned out?
I think it's somewhat expected, given how the government says it plans to reduce expenditure. Don't forget that government is the biggest spender in the economy. And it's decided that as a percentage of GDP, there's almost a 6 percentage points cut in the government expenditure compared to last year. That's quite extraordinary. So I think to the extent that government is trying to put its fiscal, its finances in order by doing this kind of cut, you see that that's going to have an impact. But the other thing is that you have to understand that the 2024 growth was primarily driven by just a couple of sectors, construction, and then also mining and quarrying. So you realize that in the last quarter of 2024, when growth from mining and quarrying went down, you realize that the growth declined dramatically. So in some sense, that kind of normalization of the growth is expected because we're not going to have new mining and new oil fields coming on stream every time. So even though the projection is a lower number, it's more or less consistent with what you would have expected over a long-term trajectory.
And Professor Suming, of what impact would the various policy interventions as enumerated in the budget have on the economy, considering the taxes and levies that have been scrapped?
Well, I think you have to understand this from the context of what, the other aspect of the fiscal situation, the debt. And I think, the finance minister was at pains to explain the various categories of debt that we found ourselves into. And the fact that last year we couldn't even meet the fiscal target at the end of the year. Now, I think, obviously, also within the context of the political campaign, the president and the government has been absolutely bent on making sure that the most visible and the most important elements of their campaign were fulfilled. And that's why we've seen a rollback of all those taxes that, were said. I think, in some sense, the finance minister also communicating that there's a way to do these cuts and then make up for them was also a good thing. At least it gives confidence that perhaps these cuts are here to stay. And then we also saw the number of other government programs that are meant to boost the real sector of the economy. I think that's where the action is. We have seen this before. I mean, having a fresh start and then reading a budget, scaling back some unpopular taxes. We did this. We saw this 8 years ago. I think exactly how these programs will boost the economy and make it more sustainable I think that's the most important thing. But I think as a first budget, it's gone very well.
All right, quickly before we wrap up the conversation, sir, so if you have to tell someone sitting at home watching, what's in for them in this budget, would you say?
I think what's the main thing that's in for ordinary people is that, government has become a little bit overbearing without being very productive. And we are seeing a rollback of that. So when the government says I'm cutting some taxes and then in some, realign some of even the spending. So it talked about some funds devoted to apprenticeship, some funds devoted to increasing support for social protection, some funds to help school feeding and other things. So it clearly signals that now this particular budget says that this year government is pulling back and allowing ordinary individuals to come a little bit more to the forefront, which is a reversal of what you saw in the last 2 or 3 years.
Professor Patrick Suming, thanks so much for your input this very moment. I truly appreciate it. Let's talk about taxes because government has announced plans to present the necessary instruments for the abolishment of several taxes in the 2025 budget. Finance Minister Dr. Ato Forson outlined the tax cuts during his budget presentation in Parliament today.
Speaker, despite our commitment to increase the non-oil tax revenue by 0.6%, we have programmed the following nuisance taxes for removal in line with our manifesto promise. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on winning from lottery, otherwise known as the betting tax. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy, of 1%. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on betting. We will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy, of 1%. We will abolish the emission levy, otherwise as in Wusie tax. We will abolish the VAT on motor vehicle insurance policy. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 1.5% withholding tax on unprocessed gold by small-scale miners.
Let's get some reactions on the back of that. Joining us via Zoom is the Business Community Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the AGI, Chena Mapelu, joins me via Zoom, as well as the President of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Stefana Baz-Mazan, also joins us via Zoom. We want to have a conversation on this. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for your time here on Business Live. And I want to start off with you, Chena. Does this come to you as a relief?
Well, Ms. Bat, and let me begin by actually saying greetings to your cherished listeners and also greetings to Abbas. Abbas, please do call me after this meeting. So, look, we have to be grateful. If you follow advocacy, one of the biggest things that we've been championing is the removal of the e-levy and also the emissions tax. It has happened. And so to that extent, industry is grateful to the government for this gesture. Our biggest expectation for this budget really has been the rationalization of the VAT. But we're a little bit disappointed that we did not receive any direction from this budget. However, the minister promised that they would engage with stakeholders, including IMF, and come back to that subject. So we are willing and waiting to see what happens, because all of us in industry are really keen to see the feedback on that, because that affects us a lot. The issue around VAT affects us in a big way. So we pray that it won't be forever. We pray that in the shortest possible time, the government would make final pronouncement on that.
And
I also like, okay.
Maybe you want to conclude that for me before I come in, sir.
Yeah, well, I was just going to also conclude and also to mention that we're also happy about the several reforms that were introduced. We believe that it would most of them were near to increment in revenue for the government. So also we think that there are good things.
And as you look forward to, saying government streamline the VAT issue for you, we know that at least there's been some removal of taxes, which of course you've deemed as nuisance. Of what impact, again, will that have on your operations now that they've been removed?
Thank you. So you see, most of our businesses are SMEs. I mean, majority of our businesses actually, most of them have come to use e-levy as a mechanism, or have come to use mobile financial transaction as a mechanism of doing business. And so when e-levy was introduced, it impacted businesses in a extremely negative way. And that we've complained several times and asked that is removed, because the 1% actually is not 1%. If you send money to your supplier, they take 1%. The supplier also send to his supplier 1%. So at the end of the day, it's a huge cycle of debt. But to take off the e-levy, we believe that it's really going to impact businesses positively, and also that we can now encourage more businesses to begin to use e-payment and e-transaction to do business. Mind you, the whole world is going digital, and it's important that as businesses that want to be aligned with the world, we have to also go digital. So it will have a major positive effect on our businesses.
Good to know. So is that going to reflect in your pricing?
So I would encourage that we wait. There will be certainly reflection in prices, but we wait to see how the VAT pans out. It's easier to wait and put all of these together and make the decision. So we wait for the VAT to make those pricing decisions.
Great Accra Regional Chairman of the Association of Ghana Industries, John Amapelu, thanks so much for your time here on Business Live. Rather unfortunate, we couldn't make time to speak to Stefan Abbas Mezan, the President of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We shall subsequently. Still watching Business Live. We have more for you after this break. Hello again, welcome back to Business Live. The Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Abina Moa, has emphasized the need for policy reforms to incorporate investment into the educational system, highlighting its importance in equipping young individuals for real-world economic participation. More from Helen Nakai.
Commemoration of International Women's Day, the Ghana Stock Exchange brought together industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and young women to discuss gender equality, empowerment, and financial inclusion under the theme Ring the Bell for All Women and Girls' Rights, Equality, and Empowerment. Speaking at the event, the Managing Director at the Ghana Stock Exchange, Abena Amoa, underscored the need for compulsory inclusion of investment education in schools to facilitate easy management of finances.
We think that we need to start early, and that's why we think the biggest contribution we can make is if we make investment education part of compulsory programs at school. So working with Ministry of Education include financial education and literacy in primary schools through to tertiary, because every person, no matter what you do at the end of the day, you should be able to be educated to use the financial tools you have, to understand that if you want to start a business, it's better to register it, so that the percentage of women-run businesses that are registered and have formal structures around that improves.
She further emphasized the need for this celebration within the stock exchange market in cushioning sustainability.
Another platform we've done is also a sustainability segment of the market where companies can raise social bonds, green bonds, or gender bonds, which is debt financing that is cheaper than regular financing. And companies that have interest in investing in these areas can get cheaper financing by issuing these type of bonds.
The Global Shapers Community Accra has initiated the My First Job Accelerator program to provide national service personnel with crucial soft skills needed in the job market. This initiative aims to tackle the persistent high unemployment rates faced by service personnel after they complete their mandatory service period. Here's a report.
The high rate of unemployment after national service, the Global Shapers Community Accra is poised in curbing the issue through soft skills training. During the launch, project lead for My First Job, Joel Aneman, highlighted the significance of the program, encouraging participants to take full advantage of the training to boost their employability.
We are piloting this and it's just limited to 100 people, but we are really thinking about scaling this up, right, with the necessary support that we are going to get from possibly funders like MasterCard Foundation, the World Bank, and all of that. But the main thing here is that if you are happy about not getting a job after going through 4 years of gruesome education, then that's absolutely okay. But if you are really looking forward to applying your skills, being able to build an income for yourselves and your family, then My First Job becomes an opportunity for you. However, we are looking at scaling this up. So this is limited to about 100 people. We've done a bit of recruitment already. We are looking forward to scaling this. So in the coming years, we look forward to opening it up so that all national service personnel are able to join and benefit from this immense program.
Business Development Executive at Jobberman Ghana Limited, Hubert Senior, emphasized the essential topics that will be addressed at the program.
So we'll do time management, we do CV rewrite, we do public speaking, we do communication, we do basically everything soft skills.
This initiative aims to close the skills gap and improve the chances of young graduates obtaining sustainable job opportunities.
Finally, before we go, calls for increased investment in Ghana's creative industry are gaining momentum, with renowned artist Jeremiah Akwashi urging creatives to position themselves as viable businesses.
The portraits in the exhibition are characterized by the boundaries of portraiture, studio photography, appropriation from old masters' traditions, and a unique realism which questions the construction of imagery and picture making. Here is Jeremiah Akwashi speaking on the importance of art to Ghana's economy.
In 2010 and then 2011, when I had the opportunity to be on KSM's show, Thank God It's Friday, that was one of the things I advocated for, that people who do art are not necessarily people who did not do well in maths or in English or in sciences, because some of us actually did quite well to be able to, do any course we wanted. But art is also another aspect that is very important to society. And so, for example, when you look at many of the Western countries, you find that they have museums dedicated to art. These museums also, people pay money to go see them. So art has a dual purpose. First, it has the purpose of recording history, and at the same time, it also has the opportunity to become economically viable for the country or the nation as a whole.
Through his works, Kwashi seeks to challenge dominant narratives surrounding African art and the portrayal of women. His goal is to showcase their power and dignity, shifting perceptions and encouraging dialogue on these critical themes.
Thanks so much for watching Business Life. I am Pius Kujubaka.